state lawmakers and voters who support going green have had a lot to celebrate in terms of the aggressive campaign in New York to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But now comes the hard part, implementing those ideas to slow down the impact of climate change. The state comptroller's office just put out this brand new report showing just how difficult and expensive it will be to meet the climate goals. For example, right now, renewable generators in New York would need to produce more than 200% more electricity to reach the, quote, ambitious goals for 2030. And when you talk about developing the infrastructure to actually connect renewable energy to the grid and then eventually to our homes, well, that needs to happen fast in order for this all to work. Joining us live right now is Maria Doulis. She is the Deputy Director for Budget and Policy Analysis for the New York State Comptroller's Office. Thanks so much for taking some time for us. Your team produced this report. We were digging through it today. Very clear, it seems, that a lot needs to happen quickly if New York wants to be able to meet these climate goals. Tell us a couple of the highlights and what you found as you were sort of assessing how we are in all this.
Yeah, as you said, New York has set a really ambitious but important and worthy goal. And so our focus was to do a review of the progress we've made in generating and bringing new renewable projects online, and sort of take stock to see where we were to understand the prospects for meeting the goal in the future. So as you said, fundamentally, based on the data provided by NYS and other state entities, we find that New York would need to triple its renewable energy electricity generation capacity to meet the goal by 2030, which would be a lift. I think, however, there is reason to be cautiously optimistic that the state can reach this goal because it's made changes to address some challenges in recent years that have really given it some momentum.
All of these incentives around renewable energy and then, of course, the cost of the transmission projects ultimately paid by either taxpayers or customers, right? Do you think the public understands that? And what should we know about the cost of all of this and how it's bearing out?
Yes, I think this is a really good point. You know, it's a complex landscape with many players and many actors. And you're talking about multi-billion-dollar investments that are undertaken under a very long time horizon. And I think for the average consumer or ratepayer, it's really hard to wrap your mind around what this will mean for you and your family or your business, you know, in the next 6 months, in the next 6 years, in the next 16 years, right? So I think, you know, what the comptroller is calling for in this report is more transparency and help to so for consumers to understand what this will mean for them and their households. And then, you know, some consideration for those who are on fixed income and low income households because, you know, utility costs are a significant part of the household budget. And so the state has taken some action on that recently as well, but it is something where there needs to be focus and attention.
In your report, you also outlined a big challenge in terms of getting the energy to where it needs to go. And this is something that we're particularly interested here in Western New York, connecting our region and really all of upstate to a lot of these new facilities that are focused on renewable but are downstate. How is that going and how concerned should we be about that network filling out?
Well, there are investments underway, and I will say, you know, hydropower, particularly from Niagara Falls, is by far the largest renewable resource that this state has, and is one of the reasons why we're actually 6th in the nation in terms of share of energy generated by renewables. So that's something to be proud of. And for a long time, the problems have really been about how we get renewables generated upstate into downstate where there's most of the usage. I think now we're looking at different challenges, as you said, about setting up the transmission, but also the distribution capacity to get this energy into people's homes and businesses. There are investments well underway. There's the Champlain Power Express line and the transmission line, and also Clean Path New York, and those are underway. But as we said, these are pretty expensive investments. And so, you know, there needs to be care shown to make sure that they are cost effective and operating on plan and on schedule.
Yeah, in 2030, we'll be here before we know it, already at 2023. Maria Doulis is the Deputy New York State Comptroller for Budget and Policy Analysis. I know you worked really hard on this report. It is fascinating to read. It goes really in depth. There are ambitious goals and a lot of work to do between now and then. Thanks for helping us understand it.
Thank you for having me.